You may be seated. Gavin, come on. Okay, for the sake of our recording, I'm Reverend Kim Wells, pastor of Lakewood United Church of Christ in St. Petersburg, Florida. This Sunday is United Nations International Day of Peace, and we are focusing on peace for Gaza, Palestine, and Israel, the homeland of Jesus. I'll be talking with Gavin Myers, a student at nearby Eckerd College, who has lived in the country of Oman for 11 years with his family. His father is a missionary, serving at the Al-Amana Center working for peace between different religions. So, I'm going to ask Gavin some questions, and he's going to tell us about his experiences and what he knows from his involvement in that part of the world. Yes.
Sure, cool. So there's a pretty big Christian presence in the Middle East. A lot. I totally forgot to bring my book, but in one of my classes we were reading about the top 20 countries that have higher percentage of foreign-born, and the top 5 were all Arab countries, and Oman was in that, along with like Kuwait and Qatar. UAE has easily the highest. But yeah, there's a lot of Christians in the Middle East, specifically in Oman. There are a lot. There are, I thought 4 church campuses, but my dad is now telling me 5. So there are 5 church campuses, and they all, except the 5th one's pretty new, so it doesn't have everything yet. But the main 4 all have a Greek Orthodox church, a Catholic church, and Protestant church. But the Protestant church also has like multiple different services in different languages and that kind of stuff. With Palestine, Gaza, and Israel, I have this written down. Okay, yes, it's right here. So my dad works with a organization in Israel called Masalaha, or they're partners, and it is led by a Christian, working with both Israelis and Palestinians, and both Christians and Muslims. So there is still a Christian presence in Gaza and Palestine and Israel in general. But I only know this group mostly, for Israel Palestine. But I know there are still Christians living in the Middle East in general.
So this latest war erupted on October 7th, 2003, but it's another 2023, thank you. But it's another chapter in a very, very long saga. We could even say a saga that goes back to Bible times. So I asked Gavin if he could give us kind of an overview of the arc of the conflict for, say, the past generation or so.
Yeah, I had to do some research on this. I remember most of it, but I'm like, I want to get the specific details down. Okay, I wrote them all on note cards too, so we'll see how this goes. So in the UN 1947, so I'm going to start in 1947 because that's kind of what I wrote down. UN 1947 partition plan was passed to partition the British Mandate of Palestine into Arab and Jewish states. In 1948, there was an Arab-Israeli war where Israel claimed independence. In May 14, 1948, Arab states the next day invaded, and Israel won in 1949 and took a lot of the territory. And because of that, an estimated, this is from like Google stuff, I don't even know if this is correct, but it probably would be more. because of that, there's more that are displaced, but this is what they're telling me. Estimated 700 to 800,000 Palestinian Arabs displaced. And then 1967, there was a six-day war where West Bank and Gaza were under Israeli occupation. 1967, Jewish settlements were put into the Palestinian areas. 1987 and 1993, Palestine uprised against Israeli settlements. And I remember learning that too. That was like 2013, 2014 that they were talking about that as well. Oslo Accords, and this will also get into one of the later questions too with peace and stuff, but Oslo Accords in 1993, leaders had signed a peace resolution that granted limited self-governance in parts of the West Bank and Gaza. However, in 2000 to 2005, failed further peace talks at Camp David were happened. More violent Palestinian uprisings, suicide bombs, and fighting happened. 2005, Israel withdraws military settlements from Gaza, and then Hamas, who is currently still in power, takes power in 2006 and gained control of Gaza from another political group. So yeah, and then the current war. So
Okay.
It's been happening for a while.
Yeah, okay. So what we know about the attacks on Gaza comes largely from news media and social media, and I think often that's filtered. So I'm wondering if what's really going on in Gaza is worse than what we generally see from news sources. And I asked Gavin to share his thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I was talking with my dad about this one too, and we both agree that it is much worse than it seems, than it is published out as well, because within the last year or two, Al Jazeera was kicked out of Israel. A lot of other news sources were removed from Israel, so we're not getting the true story behind it. But with reading from the UN and stuff, they're still asking for donations and money and stuff for on their immigrant website. It's IOM, but I don't remember what it stands for. But yeah, it's bad. There's not really words to describe it because Israel is stopping humanitarian aid. They have been. They probably still are. There's hostages. There was Israel had an attack on Doha last week, and against one of the. It was an assassination attempt against one of the Hamas leaders who was working on a peace agreement in Qatar, because Hamas has a headquarters and has had a headquarters in Doha for a while. But because of that, I did see a story about an Israeli mom that was worried about her son because her son was one of the Hamas hostages. So there are things that are happening that we're not seeing. I did see a video a couple weeks, I think last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, where the streets of a city in Israel, I don't remember exactly where, were flooded with protests against the government. There are, isn't this question?
We're getting on to our next question, which is fun.
I think, because there was one, I don't remember if this is.
Tell me about the peace efforts.
No, because there was another one.
That was that one.
No. Because I had something in my head, but I don't know if it's one of the questions.
Don't worry about it. Just say it. Don't worry if it goes with the question. That's all right.
No, I was going into
Okay.
social media. Okay. Yeah, because one of the questions is social media. Yeah, like I said, there are videos and stuff that I have seen with Israel, and I'm losing it. Dang, I had it written down too. Sorry, guys.
Take your time. Exactly.
Where is it? Because I had something in my head and I was gonna say it. I'm also tired.
Well, when it comes back,
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
I had to work a long weekend.
So this is another question I had for Gavin because I've experienced issues around this. So in the US, support for Gaza and Palestine is often conflated with anti-Semitism. You know, if you're against the genocide in Gaza, well, then you must be anti-Jewish. And if you're against giving military assistance to Israel, then you must be anti-Semitic. For the most part, those who decry the genocide in Gaza are appalled by the actions of the government of Israel, and that has nothing to do with being Jewish or the practicing of the Jewish faith or being against people who are Jewish. So as far as you know, Gavin, is that dynamic of conflating condemnation of the genocide with anti-Semitism, is that also like part of the discourse in the Middle East? Is that how people look at things there too?
Okay, and I do remember what I was going to say.
Good.
So I still have hope for a two-state solution, fingers crossed. But with the how we were talking about like how it's like a Christian, like a Muslim Jewish kind of war, I also say that it's more of a governmental war. There's plenty of Palestinians and Jewish Israelis, Christian Israelis, Palestinians that are completely against this whole war and are actively protesting against it. And so I usually say, instead of having a religious war, I usually say that it's a government war. So it's Hamas, who is a militant group, versus the Israeli government. Yeah, so that's what I was going to say with that. And so for this next question with anti-Semitism, I was talking to my dad about this again this morning because they're like 8 hours ahead and I usually call them every morning. You'll see that on here too because I'm going to send in this video. But yeah, so my dad was saying that anti-Semitic Middle East does say it's a genocide. The UN has officially publicly kind of said within the last week that it is genocide. But in the Middle East, what my dad was telling me is that anti-Semitism is like, it kind of goes over their head. Like it's something that isn't really understood because my dad was saying that Arabs are like Semitic. So it's not really like anti-Semitism isn't something that a lot of people in the Middle East grasp. And so it's definitely more of a thing in the US, I would say.
Okay. So can you tell us more about peace efforts that you know of taking place in Palestine, Gaza, Israel, neighboring countries in the wider region? And how are people raising their voices for peace? And do you think any progress is being made?
Yeah. It's
you can talk about the Starbucks and McDonald's.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, it's a hard question to answer because as long as both sides are in power, you're not really going to get peace because there's not much normal people can do. Because there's people protesting in Israel, Palestine against this, but there's also tons of people that support them, and so it's this whole thing of back and forth, and I did an essay research paper for one of my classes last year, and I was going to print it too. And I was talking about different political methods, and my conclusion with what the author was writing about was that the people have to start it first, and then the government will follow. But that I don't think that will work for this because I don't want to say the government and Hamas are stubborn, but they kind of are. With peace and stuff too, I thought they were like boycotts. So there are boycotts against like Chick-fil-A and Starbucks, McDonald's, and all that kind of the American-run businesses. And now my dad told me last week that there's only one Starbucks in all of Oman, which there used to be a lot more. And then the McDonald's was sold to a UAE guy that could take the financial burden. Yeah, so there's not much that normal people can do for peace. But with specifically to Gaza and Israel, my dad does mostly bridging an understanding of different religions. And so there's that kind of stuff as well. But with specifically Palestine and Israel, it's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I had asked, are there things that Christians or churches are doing specifically to work for peace that you know of? I mean, your dad's center, obviously, but are there other things?
I mean, yeah, there's Musalaha, like I talked about in Israel. My dad, I forget when, I think it's next month. They're bringing a group of Israelis and Palestinians to Oman. I don't know much about church stuff, so
Okay.
yeah.
Good. So we're going to remember some words from Albert Einstein. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So we're looking for new thinking. We have a few minutes, so we wanted to ask if there are questions from anyone in the congregation that you would like to suggest to Gavin. Yes, Tony.
I was at a conference once and sitting next to, it was a peace conference, and sitting next to a man from Palestine. And I asked him, do you think peace is possible in this process? And he looked at me and said, no. And I asked him why. And he said, because we've, well, I'm going to forget it, because we've killed each other's children. And do you see, for example, among the Christian population, which one might consider in some way a mediator, even though they tend to identify very much with the Palestinian side, a real possibility?
I think I can't speak for other people, but I think for me, I still have hope of a two-state solution, and that although yes, there is war and it's been going on for a long time, there also have been World War I and World War II and other wars that have gone on for a long time and then stopped, and it's been peaceful. So I do think it will take a longer time because of all the war that has already happened, and you can't erase that. But I think I still have hope for peace. A lot of people I know don't, at least for a two-state solution where both Israel and Palestine live together. I will say that I did see this morning, literally as before we were about to start, that the UK, Portugal, Australia, and Canada have officially recognized Palestine as a state. So more and more countries, I know more countries that have like said, okay, we're on this day, we're gonna officially recognize them. So there are more countries that are officially recognizing the state of Palestine. And I also do think though too that I was talking to my dad, I'm like, either the US has to back out, which they can't because they've been part of this for a very long time, or the US has to push harder for peace. And so I do think that, personally, I do think that there still is a chance. It's just going to take a very long time.
Thanks. Another question. Yes, Kay.
Years ago, President Clinton sent Senator Mitchell with a process of developing peace between the two warring sides in the Troubles. Has there been any movement anywhere to send someone like Senator Mitchell to George Mitchell into the fray to bring those folks together?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Other questions? Yes, Jim.
It seems to me what distinguishes a war from an act of aggression is that or is this, more of an act of aggression?
I would say that there is both. Again, with the Al Jazeera and other news sources out of Israel, there's a lot we're not seeing. They are still having losses. Like, there are still innocent lives being killed because Hamas is still attacking Israel. So it's a back and forth thing. It's not just Israel completely attacking Hamas. Hamas is also doing things to Israel. So it's a both and. So it's like, okay, Hamas attacked Israel, so now Israel's going to attack Hamas, and it goes back and forth. And so it's very never ending. We mostly see Palestine because their losses are definitely more significant because the U.S. is backing Israel, so they have a major powerhouse backing them. And so I think it is very much of it's both sides, but it's very much of a one-sided of what we're seeing, if that makes sense.
Last question, yes, Julie.
Do you feel like Hamas, as formally being an aggressor, would make a stable government foundation? Or would there have to be some sort of complete regime change in order to maintain peace?
I want to say complete regime change because Hamas is very much of a military group. And so I also think that's one of the other things too, is that I don't want people to die and get killed. But I also think because Hamas is a part of the problem, and like I said, it's a Hamas government war, I think if both governments were gone, it would be a different thing.
So many thanks to Gavin for this meaningful conversation. As we say on the peace pole outside in front of the church and at the entrance as we come in, our prayer is, may peace prevail on earth. Amen. Thanks, Gavin. Thank you.